A school in Texas is putting tracking chips in its students' ID cards. The school says it's for student safety in case of emergency, and it will increase attendance, which will mean more money, because that's how school funding is determined. Students, they object. They don't like this, an invasion of privacy. So what does the judge say? Here's the author of the great new book, Theodore and Woodrow. All right, Judge, welcome back.
Stuart?
You know, I have to ask the question yet. You're about to launch, aren't you? Well, just hold on a second.
I'm ready.
I don't see anything wrong with tracking chips in a student's ID. I wouldn't mind knowing where they are.
I think that that's probably the way the courts would go on this. Now, this is obviously a novel issue. No court has ruled on this. As far as I know, this is the first proposal for it.
Well, what do you think?
Well, I think it could lead to a very slippery slope. It could lead to chips under the skin, which has been proposed before. It could lead to wearing the ID when you're off school grounds, because as we know from a recent Supreme Court decision, that crazy bong hits for Jesus decision, that students can be punished for behavior off school grounds and outside of the school hours of the day. So this could lead to a very dark and dangerous area. But in terms of safety in the school building, which the school has an obligation to ensure, and in terms of knowing where the children are in the school building, which the school has the right to know.
I don't see much point in that unless it's tracking them all over the place. If they're not at school, you can find out because they're playing truant or something, playing hooky or whatever.
Well, if they're not at school,
so
the school has no authority to surveil them, because then the Fourth Amendment implications would come into play. That is, if the school wants to know where they are, they'd have to get a warrant. But when they're in the school building, I think the courts would uphold this, even though I think it will begin a dangerous slope as a reasonable way of monitoring their
But there's a huge difference between a student's ID and putting a chip under the skin. There's a huge difference.
There is a huge difference. But the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This is that step.
And to the judge's point, listen, these kids, they're going to collect their IDs and give them to a friend.
You hear what he said to me? That I'm using cliches.
You are. You walk 100 miles.
Cliches tell the truth.
You walk 100 miles.
Right,
stop it.
We all use cliches.
He also gives pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, go.
No, but listen, these kids are going to take the ID off and give it to some kid in the class, cut class, go out, smoke cigarettes.
And what will that lead to? The skin.
Right. Eventually, the schools are going to say, this is not working. We keep finding a bunch of IDs in a bathroom.
Look, technology has to keep pace with changes in our concept of privacy.
Question, sire. Would you permit a public school to implant a chip under the skin of your children?
No.
No way.
Of course not.
No further questions.
Of course not. But yes, I would welcome a public school which put a chip in my child's student ID card.
Understood.
I would welcome it. Frankly, I would.
So you're willing to draw that line at the skin?
Sure. Look, we all have to draw lines on all occasions, especially when ideas of privacy come in line.
Geez, that sounds like a cliche. I couldn't resist.
No, you couldn't resist, could you? You couldn't. I want to know something. How's the book going?
Pretty well.
Sales thereof.
Yeah, pretty well.
Do you look on Amazon every day and say, well, where am I
No, I
now?
did that. This is my 7th book. I did it on my first 2. After that, I stopped because it'll drive you crazy.
My producer is saying, read the full title. Well, I don't know what the full title... Go ahead.
Theodore and Woodrow, How 2 American Presidents Destroyed Constitutional Freedoms.
I think you're going a little far.
This is not a book about schoolboys.
Destroyed
This is about what they did to destroy the Constitution.
That first step you're taking about walking 100 miles, I think that first step that you just took was a huge leap.
Well, it's actually a Confucius phrase. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Woodrow Wilson borrowed $100 million to fund World War I. We have yet to pay it back. We are still paying the interest on it. Want to know more? Read Theodore and Woodrow.
Especially page 278, wasn't
where
it?
Sire's name appears.
I forgot to ask Ollie North, am I in his book?
Whoa!
I read it otherwise.
Do you only tout books where your name is mentioned?
Yes. Thank you, Judge.
Pleasure.
Great stuff.